Hi guys, I've had this Gtech carpet sweeper now for well over 10 years and it's still going strong. I'm going to be testing it a bit later on to show you how well it still works, as well as show you how to take it apart to clean it. It came with this little charger which only takes around an hour or so to a full charge and for the little green light to come on, with a full charge lasting around an hour of constant use, which after all these years I think is pretty damn good. It's very lightweight and easy to use, and there's the main spinning brush as you can see. But this little spinning brush on the side here, which is supposed to bring the dust out from the edges of your carpet, has been broken for a good few years now, but to be totally honest, it really doesn't make that much difference, so it's not really a big problem. Now, another thing that broke over the years was the plastic handle, which I simply taped up since it happened, which was well over 5 years ago now, and it's still totally fine. As you can see, it still does a great job of collecting dust after all these years, and it's super easy to empty too. Now the handles all come apart as well, which I'm going to do right now to make it easier to show you how to take it apart and clean it before testing it out again when it's empty in a minute. Now these two plastic lugs here are to be acknowledged, as they play a role in taking off the brush roller cover as well as putting it back on, as you'll see in a moment. Now the thing is with this, it's quite tricky because quite a bit of controlled force is required to actually get it off. You may probably, be a little bit worried about breaking it, as I was at first. All I did was to apply a little bit of pressure to the top of the cover, which is now underneath, as I pried it off with my fingers. Now you could use a plastic type of screwdriver or levering tool if you have one. I wouldn't use a metal screwdriver, as that will probably crack it. As I said, a fair bit of force is required. Then we just have to take off the little spinning brush on the side, which is easy enough by locating the little plastic tab and pulling it down. This doesn't work anymore, as I said, but it still needs to be there, of course, to hold in the main spinning brush. Then just take off the little belt that drives the main spinning brush. Once the first end of the main spinning brush is out, just give it a bit of a tug to detach the other end, being careful to leave that little rubber strip in place that's needed for hard floors. Now you can give it a good wipe out with a damp cloth or wet wipe before putting it back together. Now to put it back in place, the main spinning brush has a little pin that goes in a little hole on one end that's put in first, before attaching the driving belt on the other end and dropping that other end in place, giving it a little spin to make sure it's all working okay. Then put the little side spinning brush back with a little push to clip it back in place. As I said, this doesn't work anymore, as there was a little plastic cog in there which is now broken, which in all honesty is to be expected with plastic components that are well over 10 years old. Now putting the plastic cover back on is a lot easier than taking it off, thankfully, but it does still require a little bit of force to clip it back in place. Remembering to make sure those two little plastic lugs that I mentioned earlier when taking it off are both in their individual little holes in the cover. So you have to hold them in as you turn it over and click it back in place. It is a little tricky and it may take a couple of goes, so a little bit of patience and perseverance may be required. And there you go, and already after cleaning it, it seems to be running a lot better. Don't put your fingers in there, guys, despite it being a soft brush, and yeah, I can feel that suction straight away is better than it was before cleaning it. Okay, let's put our now empty and clean dust tray back in, clip our handle back on, and give it a test. Well, I've got to say, guys, that honestly feels so much more efficient now it's had a good clean. If you haven't cleaned your hoover or sweeper out for a while, I strongly suggest you do, because it seriously makes a world of difference. Now, bear with me here, guys, as I can tell you're going to be pretty shocked at the amount of dust that this little carpet sweeper can collect in such a short time. Bearing in mind this is a pretty old machine now, and given the fact that I used it on this carpet only yesterday, so it really shouldn't have much more dust to collect off this carpet. Now just look at that. That's quite a shock even to me, to be honest. Honestly, that is quite a shock. I'm not sure if you can see that. Hold on, I'm just going to put it down over here under the lights and bring the camera over. And that's after well over 10 years of regular use, and it's still working that well. I think it's definitely fair to say that the Gtech range is pretty well made for sure, and well worth the money if you can afford them, as they've definitely gone up in price since I got this. I'll add links in the description down below if you're interested, and if you made it this far, thanks a lot for watching. Take care, see you soon.